All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to an amazing, amazing webinar. We're going to have so much fun today. Those of you in my community who are fellow space cadets, hold on to your G suits, hold on to your oxygen supply, because we're taking you to the upper stratosphere. So first of all, I have to say that we're on with two of my dearest friends, and they don't necessarily look the part, but friends for the better part of more than 3 decades. Hard to believe it, but you guys know I'm focused on longevity. So what's 3 decades out of 7 centuries? But there is something in the water for those of us who were born in the 60s or 70s, and Apollo and space shuttle. There's just like this absolute desire to want to open up space. And we're going to be talking about a way that all of us can get effectively up into space, not for a little jump up there like you do for a few minutes with a suborbital flight, but to get up there and stay up there for a period of time and get a perspective like none other. So first of all, Tabor MacCallum and Jane Poynter, welcome, my friends. Good to see you guys.
Hi, great to see you, Peter.
So great to see you, Peter.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is for everybody watching. You're watching friends catching up. But we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects. We're talking about opening up space for everybody, not just for the elite few, not just for those who can afford a, God, 30, 40, $50 million flight into space to the ISS. But hey, here's a chance to go up there for a much more affordable price. And right now, put your name on a list for $0 to learn more about it. But so we're going to be talking about a company called the Space Perspective. We're going to be talking about what the experience is like. I want to hit you guys up for the amazing engineering you've done around space jumps, around closed life support systems, around all of these things. You guys are rock star engineers and entrepreneurs. And anyway, so let me start by doing a proper introduction of my two friends. So Tabor MacCallum is founder, co-CEO, and CTO of Space Perspective. It is a human spaceflight company providing unprecedented access to space with its zero-emission space balloon for individuals, researchers, and governments. Tabor is chairman of the board of the Commercial Spaceflight Federation. I happened to start the Commercial Spaceflight Federation in a small room at Elon's offices back after the X Prize got won, but that's a different issue. He was a CTO and safety officer for StratX, and this was amazing. I mean, talk about, this is when Alan Eustace, who was an executive at Google, put on one of their spacesuits, got into a balloon, and how high was he when he jumped? We'll come back to this in a minute.
136,000 feet.
He walked out the door of his balloon at 136,000 feet and plummeted. Gravity still works up there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Most importantly, Tabor is a graduate of International Space University, ISU, in our inaugural class in 1988, and then part of an extraordinary experiment called Biosphere 2. Maybe we'll talk about that if we have some time. Jane Poynter. Jane is also founder, co-CEO, and the chief experience officer. I love that because this is all about experience of Space Perspective. She is co-founder and founding CEO of Worldview Enterprises. She holds patents on self-sustaining habitats for the shuttle, for Mir. These are closed life support systems that allow us to stay in space for a much longer period of time. She authored The Human Experiment, 2 years and 20 minutes inside of Biosphere 2. When again, just, it's stuff that only comes from the movies. So guys, where are you broadcasting from? Where are you today?
We're at Kennedy Space Center and the Cape in Florida, which is where our operations center is, and we'll be launching from starting with our first test flight early next year.
Awesome. And as soon as I heard about it, I was like, this is awesome. I want to go, please. I want to reserve a whole gondola.
We want you to come. Yeah,
Well, I'm there.
Your name's on the
signed-
list, Peter.
I know. I signed up. You probably put my name on the list before I signed up, but yes, I'm there. Okay, so all right, let's begin with the meat and the sizzle of this. For those who don't read anything, because you had an amazing amount of media, let's talk about what space perspective, what the experience is like. So I sign up. When do I show up? Where do I show up? And Jane, walk me through the actual experience.
Yeah, so you're going to show up a few days before launch, 2 or 3 days. You're going to come down here to Kennedy Space Center. We're going to take you all around. Maybe we'll take you on a zero-G flight as well, if that's something you want to do. And then the day of flight, you're going to get up super early.
How early?
Yeah, maybe 4 o'clock, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Not that early, but early enough. So when most of us are not necessarily choose to be awake. And then you're going to come out to the launch site where you're going to see Spaceship Neptune, the capsule, incredibly lit up, and it's going to be dark out. You're going to hear the frogs, and because we're in Florida. And you're going to get into the capsule, which is for 8 people and a pilot.
So it's a pilot plus 8. So
yes,
you can bring 2 families, a big family or 2 families together. Yep.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And when it launches, the balloon is going to be standing up 600 feet over your head. I mean, this is a huge balloon. So when you imagine when it's at float at full altitude, this balloon is the size of a football stadium.
Wow.
It's fully inflated. So the capsule will lift off, and this is all going to be incredibly gentle. So you'll be comfortable, gentle, huge windows all around you.
Of course.
We hope to get up there probably pre-dawn. That would be ideal, because then you'd get up there and you'd see the incredible starscape without the atmosphere between you and all the stars. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And then you're going to start seeing the sun rise over the limb of the Earth. And you'll see the curvature of the Earth. You'll see the thin blue line. You know, a few years ago, we took just a GoPro up under a weather balloon to capture a sunrise to see what it would look like. It was astoundingly beautiful.
So
crazy.
I totally get the 4 a.m. or maybe even 3 a.m. because the air is cool and denser. So you get a better rise of the balloon. You're there for seeing the pre-dawn stars, the morning stars. That's beautiful. And then seeing the sunrise. I mean, that's like trifecta right there. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So a few numbers. We've got 8 people on board, probably serving a little mimosa on the way up. And because it's really going back to sort of the pleasure cruising, a little bit of the Zeppelin, right? I mean, you can have.
Yeah.
We figure all real spaceships have to have a bar.
So it's interesting, right? So one of the things about making space truly accessible is, really slightly rethinking what space travel is, right? I think most people think of space travel as for the few, like the right stuff. It's going to be high G's and uncomfortable. And we're like, oh, forget all that. Let's make this really comfortable so that pretty much anybody can go. If you can get on a commercial airliner, you can get on this vehicle and go. That's the idea. That's the concept of accessibility on this.
Love it. Love it.
Nautilus, it really embellishing the experience, making that what you're there for, not all the other sort of stuff on the side.
Yeah. Okay. So lift off. What altitude are we going to? What's our endpoint?
So we're going to 100,000 feet, or just over 30 kilometers, and we go up at a blazing about 18 kilometers an hour. So slow bicycling speed. It takes a little over 2 hours to get up to 100,000 feet. We stay there for a couple of hours, and then by controlled venting, we slowly come down about an average of 1,000 feet a minute, or 18 kilometers an hour, back down to a splashdown. So it's all very slow. And what's interesting about the slow ascent is Alan Eustace described this, and he's flown jets, he's flown many times. So you're looking at the ground and he says, I saw pebbles, and then I saw people's feet, and I saw people and the runway and the airport, the town, et cetera. This is happening over 2 hours. And the magic of the 2 hours was, he said, his brain could keep up with the scale changing. So by the time he saw the curvature of the Earth, he got how big the Earth was.
Yeah, that's amazing. I totally feel that. So take off to splashdown, total elapsed time is what?
About 6 hours.
6 hours.
I think we agree.
Yeah. So this is our MVP too, right, Peter? So this is the first product we're bringing out to market. So we also have these crazy notions that we're going to actually extend this to a long duration flight and eventually be able to actually circumnavigate the globe. So it's almost like you have a space hotel / space laboratory. Sure. That's circulating around the planet.
And we have people coming to us interested in the hotel idea. We have a circumnavigation project coming to us. I mean, there's all of these extensions of the MVP are already coming. It's just incoming to us. It's amazing the response we're getting.
Well, I mean, from my gut feeling, having played in the space tourism world, I think the experience length and I think the number of people going together is spot on. So that's awesome. So your ascent time, you said, is about what's the actual to get to 100,000 feet?
About 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours, and then so 2 hours to get up, 2 hours at altitude,
there.
and then
2 hours back down.
2 hours back down. Yeah, pretty solid. And you'll have all the time you need to fully take it all in, and the different phases of the visual experience.
Yeah. Exactly. What's going to be cool coming down is that you're going to come down starting from the black sky with the sun up with the black sky, and then you're slowly going to transition through that deep purple stage back into the blue sky, which by all accounts is ridiculous. It's surprising. It's just not anything we have ever experienced.
Sure.
The other thing that the 2 hours gives us is time for events, real events.
Marriages.
You can imagine, groupings of world leaders, or you can imagine, a new musical piece being produced and developed in that time frame, and all kinds of direct linked events from the edge of space. So we've got time for artists and time for poets, and there's enough time to really get many different people's experience captured, how they captured in real time. So it's really opening up all kinds of great ideas.
Awesome. The working gas here is helium?
Hydrogen, actually. Helium's so we did a bunch of work with hydrogen on very large balloons over the last few years, and we really got that down. And it turns out it's actually the sport balloonist's gas of choice. So human flights have been done with hydrogen for a long time. You just have to do it right.
Yeah, sure. And today we've got the technology to allow us to really monitor everything real time in great detail. Is the canopy used once or used many?
So the balloon itself is used once. We have a parachute system and the capsule that's reused. So we're getting most of the value is reused, but it's a single-use balloon. It's so large, getting it remade and inspected is actually far more expensive than just building a new one.
Sure. And when you're coming for a splashdown, is it a transition from canopy to parachute? Is there a cutaway that takes place, or no?
No, we actually, one of the things we worked really hard on is not having that transition, which we had thought of in earlier iterations and just the way scientific balloons work. But if we don't go from balloon to canopy, that way the canopy is always the reserve.
Yes.
So always staying in that first way of flying keeps the other way of flying as a backup. Beautiful.
All right. Now, this is not your first rodeo when it comes to balloons going to these altitudes and such. I remember I was flying with Alan Eustace on, I think it was back from Larry Page's wedding, in the back of a 767, and he casually tells me, "Oh yeah, well actually, I think I introduced Alan to you." Yeah.
That's right. So I get this, I'll tell my part of the story. I get this call from Peter. Peter's saying, I need you to take this call you're about to get seriously because it's real. And I go, yeah, Peter, look, I get one of these calls like every other week of somebody who wants to do some crazy stunt because Paragon at the time did life support for anything crazy. And then Peter's like, well, no. You need to take this one seriously. So I said, okay, Peter, whatever you say. So Peter sets up the call with Alan and me.
What did he say to you on the first call?
So it was he actually goes into it in his TED talk. It's sort of funny. So he had an idea about how to make it a self-contained system and how it's more like diving. And do we really need a capsule? And so he was like, at the end of this call, I want to know if I'm crazy or if this is really a viable idea. So we spent over 2 hours. It's like a 2.5-hour call, just going through sort of all the details of all the steps and what would work. And he says in his TED talk that it was the scariest call he ever had in his life because at the end of the call, you were like, we can do this. It was in a series of meetings that lasted a few days, and we got going. But it was a great call, and we.
So this that Taber's speaking about is Alan Eustace, meek, mild executive. You would never know it to meet him. Wanted to do a space jump. Wanted to do a jump out of a balloon and setting new altitude record. There's an amazing book called The Pre-Astronauts that talks about this stuff. What was the previous record and who held it?
So about 2 years before us, but we were still in the making when it happened, was the Felix Baumgartner Red Bull jump. So Alan and the StratX team were being very quiet because Alan was a Google executive and Google didn't want it to be out that one of their executives was going to do a space jump. And so the previous one to that was Joe Kittinger in the late 50s at 102,000 feet. Then Felix Baumgartner did a jump from 126,000 feet, but he spun uncontrollably in an inverted backspin and incredibly dangerous. And so Alan and I and a bunch of us looked at that and said, well, that's what we're not going to do. We spent 2 years developing a transonic stabilization system for Alan so that if something happened and he was passed out, we could safely get him back. Because Joe Kittinger, who did the 102,000 foot jump, said in the report, we took the best skydiver in the world and that person couldn't control the dive going transonic. So we developed the system and then did a series of test jumps with dummies and then Alan.
Amazing. So if you give us the numbers on that jump, if you would, from takeoff to altitude and time. Sure. Down. Yeah.
So he went to 136,000 feet, which took about 2.5 hours, going up at about 900 feet a minute. He stayed at 136,000 feet for about 10 minutes. Then we released him in a spacesuit that we designed from scratch. It was the first new spacesuit designed in the world in 40 years. It was the highest pressure suit ever flown, ever designed in America at 5.5 PSI. And it had an aerodynamic shell in the front and control system that came out the back for stabilization. His maximum speed was 822 miles an hour. And that altitude, that's about Mach 1.2. Actually, they heard the sonic boom on the ground and then went back and did the timing and verified that this boom we heard on the radios was actually Alan's sonic boom coming back down. From release to canopy open was 6 minutes, and then
so he was falling from space.
5 minutes. It was almost 5 minutes.
Okay, well that's fine. It's still a lot. it's falling.
And then another 4 minutes, another 9 minutes under canopy. So there's a great movie that we did called 14 Minutes from Earth that came out about the whole jump, and it was made by
good friend Jerry Colba.
And he did a reality TV-esque piece to make it really accessible. So he took 3 years of all this testing and crammed it into an hour and a half of we almost kill Alan every other scene. But it's great. You're very really accessible.
Oh, I have to get that. It's called, once again,
14 Minutes from Earth. Okay. And it's on Google or Netflix, things like that.
I'm watching it tonight. 14 Minutes from Earth.
Yeah, you'll get a kick. You'll get a kick. It's geeky enough without being overly geeky.
But one of the things that's cool about that is, so that's the team that we're working with for Space Perspective. And, when you put a friend's life in your hands, you really get real, right? And that's what a lot of this is all about, is making human flight very safe and very operational.
It's amazing. And, ultimately we go into space for a number of reasons, and everybody has their own reasons. As you know, one of my pride and joys was a overnight success after 11 years of hard work was 0G, to get the experience of weightlessness. And it's fun and it's amazing, and it's something I commend to everybody. But the view from space is just something that changes your perspective. And of course, we all know Frank White and the overview effect, and just it's a real effect to see the world in a very different way, right? It's a little bit of almost the Star Trek, Star Wars, it's like we just pulled into orbit. I always thought it was funny if, like, on Star Wars or Star Trek, that, okay, we've established, we're established in a standard orbit, Captain Kirk, and he goes, okay, beam down to the planet. It's like, this giant planet, like, just beam down, like to anywhere, and then to, like, in the middle of the jungle, Madison Avenue. Where do you?
Yeah.
It's so in '87, Frank White's book Overview Effect came out, and then you had him talk at the ISU in '88, which is where I met Frank. And so Frank introduced this idea of the overview effect. That was where I heard about it. Then a few years later, Jane and I went inside Biosphere 2, and we sort of recognized that we were having a very, very similar experience to what Frank described in his book while we were inside Biosphere 2, because we could see our whole world. It was only 3.5 acres of world, right? And when we compare that to what astronauts talk about, it's a very similar experience. And so part of the inspiration really for Space Perspective is giving people that experience that we got in Biosphere 2 and astronauts talk about, and Frank so eloquently talks about, through to today.
Amazing. All right, we're going to be going to questions from our Abundance Digital community first and foremost, and our social sphere as well. So just get your questions ready in about 5 minutes. Let's talk about safety. Obviously, it's on everyone's mind. I personally think that getting to an orbital altitude, and 100,000 feet for me is a great viewing platform. You still have some little bit of atmosphere for control purposes available. It's from the viewer's perspective, it looks like space, right? I mean, you're basically, you see the curvature of the Earth. You can see from one end of California, other end of California, or Florida, as the case may be. But you're not disgorging gigajoules of energy over the course of a couple minutes in a rocket.
It's a zero emission space flight.
Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. But it's also I guess the most dangerous part of the journey is like the first 100. Well, when can you open the parachute?
So we rigged the parachute so the parachute actually can be sprung open without needing to be falling. So we can open the parachute and get it out and just feet off the ground if we need to.
Wow.
The balloon itself is so big that there isn't sort of this immediate catastrophic failure. So between the way we rig the parachute and the size of the balloon, there is no blackout zone. We worked really hard to get rid of the blackout zone.
Amazing. So you basically have a primary and secondary safety mechanism throughout the entire flight.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. I mean, I personally have zero safety qualms on the system. Talk to us about your development timeline. So where are you now? Are you got a detailed design?
So we're starting. Why don't I say the overarching? You can fill in the details. So we start test flights in Q1, and this is not with a pressurized capsule. The first flight will be with what's called an alta-mold line. So it's a capsule simulator, if you will, right. But it goes through the entire flight. And then about 3 years later, we start human test flights, and then we hope to be in a commercial flight just over 4 years from now, the end of 24.
So yeah. The development process is very iterative because we don't need people on board to fly the vehicle. We can do all of our early testing on board by flying it from the ground, which allows us also to test the very corners of the extreme boxes. If we want to, jump to a parachute, at the highest altitude, or figure out what all those sort of worst case scenarios are and run them all we want without people. So that 3 year span is really just iteratively knocking out testing like crazy. So we've been through all the corner cases before we have a person on board. And that's a really important developmental consideration because it allows us to test these extreme conditions without risking a person.
So we'll come back to this a little bit later, but just for folks who are interested in this, at this stage, what you're doing is you're just taking people's names and emails if they're interested. You're not taking payments. You're not taking deposits. You're saying, hey, follow us, watch us. And when we're ready to take it, we'll have Peter go first and then the rest of you. So
that's right. We'll be probably putting tickets on sales next year.
Next year. And to go and put your name on a list, which costs nothing, and you should do it for no other reason than to just follow this amazing adventure and have the option to go. The website is thespaceperspective.com, correct?
That's right. And there's a form on the contact page that you fill out it's barely a form. Yeah. Please give us comments. We would love to know why you want to go. What is it about going to space? We really would love to know.
Yeah, I mean, you guys care, and you're fine-tuning an experience that becomes affordable for the rest of the world. And you're not announcing a price yet, is that correct?
We're not announcing a price yet officially, although we anticipate it'll be half of what Virgin Galactic has historically been, which puts it at around about $125,000, and we'll be solidifying that over the next 6 months-ish.
Okay. We're also working with organizations like Space for Humanity that are buying whole capsule flights for artists and teachers. We're going to be developing our own program. We really want the accessibility to be real. Yeah. The bread and butter is the paying customers, but we are making sure that people have access from the beginning.
Amazing. And again, the website is thespaceperspective.com. Go and check it out. All right, Nia, why don't we open up for questions from our community?
Great. So this first one is from Jean. I've been on a hot air balloon ride before. Other than going higher, what are some major differences about this experience? Is the cabin comfortable for the longer flight?
Yes, the cabin is a lot larger than you'd have in a hot air balloon basket. It's actually about 16 feet across. You have a very comfortable chair that reclines and a small bar and a lavatory and an open area in the middle for doing things like getting married or proposing, if that's one of the things you want to do. It's a pressurized cabin, so it's a bit like being in a commercial airliner that's pressurized with air filtration and circulation. So it's a very sort of luxurious sort of environment. It's very well appointed and comfortable.
Yeah, so I think also the huge distinction is that you're in the open air and you're hearing all that from the hot air balloon. When you go up in this, it's going to be completely silent. Well, there'll be people talking inside, but it is completely silent. And you are going above 99% of the Earth's atmosphere. So it is, to all intents and purposes, a vacuum outside the spacecraft. This is a real spaceship.
Where'd you guys get engaged?
Oh no, we're not going there.
Okay, all right, never mind.
Where we got married, though.
Where'd you get married?
We got married outside Biosphere 2 when the second crew was
there.
Still in there.
Yes. Okay. Just okay. Never mind. I'll dig into that later.
I would like to say there was a tremendous amount of romance involved.
All right, let's go back to more questions from Nia. Yeah.
Next from Allie. Were you nervous the first time you both tried this yourselves, going 100,000 feet off the ground? I'd love to hear about your first experiences.
Oh, I wish we'd done it already. Why do you think we're doing this? Why do you think we're building this company? So we can go with Peter. We haven't been yet. We're dying to go. We certainly will be some of the first to go.
But we were certainly nervous the first time we sent Alan up.
Oh.
That's you work for years to put this system together, and you finally put a really good friend there. And I have never been so focused in my life as through Alan's Ascents. We did 3 flights with him in 3 weeks, and it was an amazingly focused time of life.
Yeah, and just to be very clear, that is very dangerous compared to what we're doing here.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Well, it was.
No, okay, so you and the team did an amazing job to make it safe. But let's be clear, Alan was hurtling at the speed of sound, faster than the speed of sound, down from the stratosphere, doing something that nobody's ever done before. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, not a little bit different, like orders and orders of magnitude.
Yeah, I was very happy when that last flight was done. Let's put it that way.
Let me hit on a point here, which from our last question is, I feel you when you said, why are we doing this? We want to go, right? And it was the same thing for me. Why did I stick for 11 years in battling the FAA and getting 727 aircraft outfitted and engineered and doing all the engineering and experimentation to go and fly into zero Gs? I wanted to go. It was like, I wanted to go. I wanted to make that available to anybody who wants to go. And it is available today. The website is go0g.com. You can go and find it. And for me, the ideal weekend is you fly in zero G, then you fly to altitude, then you hit the bar. But anyway, in reality, a lot of the things that are significant in life are hard. You could be lucky, but it's hard work. And unless you've got the emotional energy and drive to keep you going, you're going to give up before it's done. And so it just is for all the entrepreneurs in the abundance community listening, doing something for a quick buck isn't the right way to do it. Doing something because you love it, it's in your heart and your soul, and it's emotionally driven is what it takes to succeed.
Yeah, I think that's completely right. I know I've heard you talk forever, Peter, about perseverance. And, we've been at this, frankly, for a while also, right? Getting to human spaceflight. So for me, I have to be driven by inspiration, and the quip about why are we doing this because we want to go. Well, that's one reason. But the other reason is that I really, really do want to give this experience to as many people as possible.
And this should exist.
It's just going to change so much. It's going to change for some portion of those people that go will be truly changed. Yeah. Who knows how many, but some percentage of the people that go and witness the Earth from space are just going to be changed forever. And then my hope is that they come back and down to earth and become greater ambassadors of, becoming multiplanetary species, as well as taking care of spaceship Earth.
Yeah.
Going to the edge of space should be something that our leaders do, so they have that perspective and get that our Earth is a relatively small place in a big space with a little thin atmosphere. Imagine if in every school or every school district there was somebody who'd been to the edge of space, and that was a natural part of the education of everybody, to meet somebody who'd had that experience and maybe have that experience themselves. Astronauts are amazing, super double high-end professionals, but making this level of access so people of all ages can go and understand this really important context about the planet that we're on is really a big part of our motivation.
Yeah, and when we think about the global challenges that we're seeing, and today, of course, things are being thrust at us that are showing us that these are global challenges in very real and visceral ways. And one aspect of dealing with them is having a global perspective. And so that's really what drives us. And so as entrepreneurs, I can't get up in the morning and deal with whatever problems facing me, or the mountain of never-ending work, because let's face it, there is, however exciting some of that work is, if there isn't a bigger, higher cause that's driving me and pulling me into the future.
Yeah, because it's hard, and doing it right is hard, and doing it so that you put your family on it and make it safe is critically important. All right, Nia, let's go to the next question.
Creative act, right, Peter? I mean, any entrepreneurial effort is a hugely creative act.
It is. It's our art form.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. All right, Nia.
Next question from Stephen. Is the experience recorded? Do you have GoPros attached to the ship for a video replay?
Yes, we'll have lots of recording going on, so people don't have to worry about that themselves. And it's amazing scenery. And one of the things about sort of GoPros, and we all have had the experience where you see this amazing vista, and you take a picture, and this sort of facsimile of the vista is like, all right, well, we geek out on GoPro videos from the edge of space all the time. They're amazing. And so taking that the other direction, we can't wait to see what the real thing is like.
Yeah, I hate there'll be Wi-Fi on board. So for all of us who can't help ourselves but post online, that's going to be very available.
The ultimate Facebook status update.
I hate when people go to a space shuttle, not space shuttle launch anymore, a Falcon launch or Soyuz launch, and you see them there with the camera in front of their face, snapping photographs, and you go, dude, don't do that. It's like you destroy, just watch the experience. There's a billion photographs online that are much better by professionals. Enjoy it. Just experience it. All right, Nia.
This one's from Terry. Assuming anything is possible, what does the future of recreational space exploration look like to all of you? Bonus points for your hypothesis on timelines, too.
Oh boy, timelines. We get bonus points for timeline. Look, of course we're going to be on Mars. I've been saying that for 30 years, mind you. But so I think we're going to see an increasing sort of pyramid of the market with things that happen on the ground is the sort of the bottom of the pyramid, and then you get suborbital flight, and then you get LEO, and then of course we're going to see people going to the moon and Mars. I hope people are going to be going to asteroids. Maybe not anytime real soon, but let's face it, there's a big old space out there to explore. So let's go. I'm not going to put a timeline on it. I'm so sorry. I lost my bonus points.
I know. Well, but you know what, Jane? We've been putting timelines on this shit for a long time.
I know.
And now there's a new set of factors with Elon and Bezos and a few other billionaires who are spending their money. It's getting out of the government realm into the private realm. And then that's where we can hopefully get surprises, right?
No, I think that's right. I mean, one thing we have to remember is that change is not linear. So hopefully we'll see significant acceleration in that regard.
Yeah, one of the big changes we're seeing is in tools. The engineering tools, even from 3 or 4 years ago, are really making an individual so much more productive and teamwork so much better. A part of that nonlinearity is just the tools are getting really good.
Yeah, all the exponential tools around modeling, around 3D printing, around even material science, all of that is sensors, networks, all of that's incredible, right? I hear from Greg that we have a 49-second trailer that we can watch that actually gives us a good view of the actual vessel itself. So are you guys okay if we show that?
Yeah, awesome.
All right, Greg, let's run it and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
There is music.
Let's see.
Awesome, that's it again.
That's beautiful. Gives people a chance to see what that looks like, and it is a high degree of beauty in there. All right, Nia, go back to you.
From Sue, how do you prepare for a flight? For example, Go Zero G has participants watch a series of videos and presentations a few hours before. Does this require any kind of training?
So there will be, of course, a little bit of training, but not a whole lot. Technically, there will not be a whole lot needed. However, experientially, I think we're going to want to make sure that people are prepared for this experience. Perhaps I will loosely say mentally, right? We want people to really get themselves ready for going up and experiencing this incredible view. And whether that means getting people comfortable in the capsule, which is probably going to be one thing that we're going to need to do. We haven't entirely thought through all of this part of it yet. So if folks have ideas about what they would like to experience, let us know. But for sure, there won't be the requirement for a lot of training, but there will certainly be the availability of a lot of different experiences ahead of time.
Makes sense. Yeah.
From Enrique, from all of your perspectives, what are the biggest challenges we currently have in space exploration?
There's
money,
a range of things. I'll say for us, for Space Perspective, our biggest challenge is operationalizing this. So it's one thing to do sort of a one-off, but to make it a routine over and over again thing. We've said for a long time, we want to make space travel like going on a commercial airline trip. That's still the real challenge
for everybody.
And then I think, as we've been saying for a long time, reusability and cost reduction is the route to getting able to be out there and exploring deep space. And we see the commercial world doing what we now don't believe NASA could even do. So we're really seeing a changing of the guard, I believe.
Yeah, I would say typically the challenges have been access to sufficient capital for the long run, because most people will start and hit a brick wall and run out of money. And having enough money, so we saw that with SpaceX, right? Elon had budgeted for 3 launch attempts on Falcon 1, and all 3 failed, and it was only on the 4th attempt that he was able to succeed. So having enough money to iterate, try, and access to the right tools. You mentioned this, Tabors. Finally, we're there where the tools allow creative designs and iteration in software. And then I think one of the biggest other issues in space is energy densities. How much energy you have to be able to release over a short period of time to escape the gravity well of Earth. And one of the beautiful things about space perspective is you're actually able to bob on the top of the atmosphere, so to speak, and
exactly.
in very graceful fashion. Yeah, so nice. Nia.
Question from Holly. What is the overview effect, and which part of the Earth will we see the overview effect?
Good question, Holly.
Yeah,
Tabor,
so
Jane?
yeah, so there's sort of multi-dimensions of the overview effect. So one of the things that's been really interesting is what direct effects seeing the Earth in space has had on astronauts. Frank White and others have done a lot of research on this, and it falls into several categories, and it literally changes their viewpoint about the world. So most astronauts who go to space and see the Earth, it's called the overview effect. When you kind of look at the globe in its totality, you see it without the borders, you see that thin blue line of our atmosphere, and you kind of realize that we are all on spaceship Earth. Put metaphorically, that is the overview effect. And the effect of it is that most astronauts return from space with a tremendous respect for our planet. And most of them actually get much more involved in environmental programs of some sort or another. Another one is sort of this is a smaller percentage of astronauts really get connected to the notion that we're in the cosmos. We're not just Earthlings, but we're Earthlings in this deep, deep, dark cosmos. And it's a very sort of almost spiritual connection. So it's really fascinating. But I think the one that is perhaps most pertinent to sort of today's challenges on planet Earth is the one where it really has a very dramatic effect on many people's perspective about the planet that we all inhabit.
Yeah, I mean, Tabor, you said this a couple of times. It'd be great to take a whole bunch of politicians up there who are arguing, and it changes your perspective about what really matters, right? When we become so enamored by the bullshit of our neighborhood or of our, the floor of our apartment building, or what's going on in our town, and it's just, hey, listen, we're on a tiny blue speck in a spiral arm of an average galaxy,
exactly.
one of 100 billion stars in the galaxy, and one of 2 trillion galaxies in this known universe. I mean, it's like, how do you say it? It's like, like, get serious. You got more important things to think about.
It really gets you the sense of we truly are all one human family. I mean, this is one we're all part of the same species on this same rock, hurtling in the same direction.
We're literally all in this together. I mean, that's the great thing about Carl Sagan's pale blue dot is how much you really get. This is all there is. For all intents and purposes, this is where we make our stand, right? And we lose that perspective so easily and squabble over, the homeowners association or something.
Yeah, and for a very short period of time, for like a few months, Tabor and I were held up as the couple going to Mars. We were doing this whole Mars mission, right? We were going to go fly by Mars, and it was all lots of fun and all of that. Never actually happened. But what was fascinating was to actually imagine, imagine what would it be like being the first human beings to be in a spacecraft at Mars, looking back at Earth and all the history that has happened. And you're not just looking at our home planet, you're looking at the entire history of humankind and of life on this planet. I mean, just astounding thoughts. So yeah, we can get very philosophical here.
You can, and we do. All right, next question, yeah.
Question from Eddie. How does your biochemistry change at this height?
Gravity is about 1% less at this height, a bit less than 1%. So not really much of a change. And we pressurize the cabin like an aircraft cabin, so at about 7,000 feet. And we're still well within the magnetic field of the Earth, protecting you from radiation. So it's not that different up in where we're going.
Yeah. Next question.
Next question from Dave. How long would circumnavigation take once you're able to accomplish that? Will you make the spacecraft bigger to provide accommodations?
So on the circumnavigation things we're looking at now, it's 10 days to 2 weeks. Looking at this, actually being up at 100,000 feet, where around the equator you get some pretty quick winds, and we would probably have fewer people and accommodate things like food and life support in that mass. So we're toying with around the circumnavigation scenarios with Neptune, but that's future TBD.
Yeah, no, we are very focused on getting to commercial flight with Spaceship Neptune as quickly as possible. So certainly we are not going to be working directly on this anytime real soon. Though obviously everything we're doing with Spaceship Neptune feeds forward into that.
How far offshore are you landing when you take off at Kennedy Space Center?
Yeah.
What's an average sort of downrange?
So where we are, the stratosphere goes to the east half the year and to the west half the year. So during the winter, we go out to the east, and we're about 200 miles offshore when we get picked up. And then in the summer, we actually loop back, go across Florida, and splash down in the Gulf about 30 or 40 miles off the shore.
Nice. Cool. And then a nice return home in a large speedboat. Next question, yeah.
Question from Claude. If you fly your passengers from the ground remotely, have you ever had any feel of worry that you could lose connection or control of your ship? At a high level, how does the technology work there?
So actually the way it works is that we have a pilot on board that can control as needed. If the pilot gets distracted by, say, one of the passengers or something, the co-pilot is on the ground and can control by radio. Via satellite link when it's over the horizon. And then thirdly, there's enough software on board to know when like nobody's piloting and takes over to bring it down safely. So we have sort of 3 legs of doing the flying of the system.
So basically the pilot is completely redundant, but please don't tell the pilot that.
Nice. Nia.
Question from Eric. What kind of safety protocols do you have for hydrogen gas?
Good question.
That's a pretty complicated series of protocols that basically revolve around never mixing hydrogen and air and an ignition source all at the same time. But we're handling the hydrogen in ways that are where we prevent static from building up and keeping the hydrogen separate from any air sources. And then just preventing static buildup. So it's processes that have been worked out quite well over the years, and we've done a lot of work with hydrogen over the last few years.
And all of this is measurable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, we do things like measure electrostatic charge buildup on surfaces and the like. So it's we know if something isn't going right.
Great. Yeah.
How many launches can you have in a day?
So we'll launch the capsule, one capsule once in a day because of the length of the flight and return and refurbishment. But we could line up many capsules. So we're here at the shuttle landing facility, which is one of the largest runways in the world. So we could line up 10, 15, 20 capsules.
I like how you're thinking, Tabor. Who's going to pop them off?
But imagine, wouldn't it be fun to actually also see another ship, off in the distance as you're floating up as we pop them up, but there's there's very long periods of time before dawn when we get good launch conditions here. So there's actually a large variety of ways we can get things up.
I'm going to answer that question just slightly differently.
That's why we're co-CEOs.
My answer is that we're going to do, so each capsule is going to fly roughly once a week. So it'll be a week turnaround. And then we're anticipating from here, from Kennedy, to do roughly 100 flights a year at least.
Nice. And that would be you know, a significant number of people getting the overview effect per year.
Yeah, and then we're going to expand around the world. So, you know, we want to have places in different parts of the world, not only because, you know, we have access to new markets, but also because then people have different experiences. You know, one of the experiences I'm dying to have is to go up and see the Aurora Borealis from up there. So, you know, we'll be working with Alaska on that. Wouldn't that be just insane?
Yeah, totally.
You know,
that's one of the important aspects of doing the splashdown is that it allows us to expand around the world. When we looked at land landing, setting up a launch site and a landing site doesn't scale very well, but doing a splashdown scales beautifully. And we've got incoming from Europe, Alaska, Hawaii. You can just rattle off the scenarios. We've already got lots of incoming for people who want to be our first international expansion site.
Wow. Well, guys, I think we're going to wrap it there on questions, and I'm going to just let folks know before we wrap the session what's coming up. We've got a Zoom breakout sessions are coming up on September 16th at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So getting a chance to meet your other Abundance Digital members. And then myself and Max Bricklin, we're going to be doing a business mentorship, Ask Me Anything, and that's coming up on September the 23rd at 1 p.m. And of course, you'll be getting information in the newsletter for our beloved Abundance Digital members, for those in the social media space. Again, the website is thespaceperspective.com. Sign up, follow this amazing journey, which I think is, you know, it's not only going to be safe and reasonably affordable, but extraordinarily beautiful and just a once in a lifetime, hopefully many times in a lifetime experience. So guys, thank you for what you built. I know when I took a decade, 11 years with Byron Lichtenberg and Ray Cronise to build Zero G, it was like, damn it, I refused to give up because I want to go, and I want my friends and family and everybody else to go. And that drive is what it takes to do anything like this. So I know that we've gone through a lot in the last 30 last 30 years. And I love you both dearly. So congratulations.
Thank you also, Peter. You know, so much of what you've done has enabled this to happen. I cannot imagine doing this without the team built around International Space University, the contacts we've made at Singularity, you know, introducing us to Alan. You know, Peter, you have been a huge part of making this happen, and I can't imagine we would be doing this without the way you changed
not be
the world.
doing this if you hadn't.
You guys are
done.
So,
but thank you. Just get it done. I'm so excited for you.
We're working on it.
I know. Invite me to stuff along the way. Anyway, thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Check out thespaceperspective.com. Tabor, Jane, always a pleasure. A big virtual hug to you both.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Ciao.